The Dogs and Vols, we're getting ready for Georgia's every other year trip to Rocky Top. Dean Legge, Ryan Curley. Brock Bowers is getting back to the field as we saw Saturday night. There's a lot going on with the Dogs, but one thing that Kirby said today was how difficult it is to prepare for Tennessee.
Yeah, said it's their hardest week of prep. And I think that there's an extra element of that when you have to go up to Knoxville and play in Neyland Stadium. Look, when a stadium's really loud, it's really loud, and you can tell you're the road team and it's a road environment. But this is one of the places. It's one of the premier college football environments, and it's a team. Even though they lost last week, it's a team that is gonna want some revenge for what happened in Athens last year.
Revenge. That usually that usually goes well. Let me just tell you that. I mean, revenge is like the most overrated thing that we talk about in sports. But yeah, I mean, if the Vols, everything fell apart for them in Athens, that was the alleged number one team in the country in terms of the college football playoff. Um, that was a completely dominating game. I have to tell you, I think Georgia's going to win this game. Um, I don't know that they're going to completely dominate it like they did. There's some real challenges going in Neyland. You've been up there, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. It's extremely loud. It's a very challenging place to play. There's a lot of ambient noise. You better be ready. And I mean, my kind of concern for Georgia is, they've only played one real road game, which was at Auburn, and they didn't play well in that game. So, you know, it's something to pay attention to. I'll put it that way.
yeah. The Vanderbilt game. It's on the road, but that's just its own
They
thing.
didn't play. They
What
didn't
go,
play so
what goes
hot in
on
Nashville
there?
necessarily. I thought they played
Yeah,
better than people realized, but it wasn't a completely suffocating thing. One thing that is suffocating is this defense has played really well the entire season. It's going to naturally, I guess, be compared to the 21 defense. Nobody in college football, probably history, is going to be as good as that 21 defense. We should probably stop that whole thing. But
yeah.
these guys are quite good still.
No, yeah, no. It's a defense that I think is playing better. That's finding its rhythm. This team it's like you said earlier, injuries. This team, for the first time all season, really had its full arsenal of weapons and offensive line out there at the same time on Saturday. Branson Robinson being the only exclusion for that, but he hasn't been there at all. So, but having Bowers out there next to Lab McConkey, the offensive line being able to rotate, it is, saying it's a completely different team is a stretch, but it is a different team that I think has gelled a lot more as the years gone on. But it didn't play well on the road. I do think that it's in a much different situation than it was back in late September.
They are. Um, they are a different team than they were back then because I think pretty much everybody is a different team. Just
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
happens. You know
You
a
could say that
lot
about
about
Alabama for sure. Is a different team than
Alabama.
September. Yeah,
Yeah, Alabama is clearly a different team. I don't think it means that they're a better team than Georgia, but I think that um, so one reason why they're different is because what happened at Auburn really did matter, and I wouldn't say things changed, but there was an exclamation point to what these guys can accomplish. I mean, I think that when you're looking at the championship game against Alabama, the possible playoff appearance, people will wonder, oh, well, can these guys do it? Well, they did do it. They did it on the road at Auburn. And we'll say, well, Auburn, I mean, Florida State did it at Clemson. I mean, there's no question about that. And I don't know which of those two teams is better. That's a good question, actually. But when you got to do it, you got to do it. And in both cases, they did. We don't know yet with Michigan. I mean, I think you could say that their win over Penn State was evidence that they certainly are better than Penn State. The Big Ten just doesn't look good to me, just period. And well, I guess we'll see over time what that's like. But um, I think that you're going into a challenging situation. I know from folks that I visit with inside the program, on the staff, whatever at Georgia, that Tennessee is a real challenge for Kirby, and they take it very seriously. And so it can't be surprising that he's notifying everyone that this is a really hard thing for them to get ready for.
Yeah, the messaging is always strategic too, and the timing of the messaging is always strategic. We know how Kirby is after blowouts, like on Saturday, and he's not in this super great mood after the team obviously plays really well. And then, you win an emotional game where the team just didn't play that well against Auburn. You know, he's a happy camper. The messaging is always strategic with Kirby, and he knows coming off of an emotional game in Athens and senior night, all of the factors that went into Saturday and it being a big day and a big night, he doesn't want this team to forget what's ahead. And so I think the messaging is always strategic with him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the one thing I don't even nobody's going to care about this, but I will say that they were at the podium so fast Saturday, like they were really up there quick versus what they usually are like after the games. I don't know if it was that's not the first night game in Athens, but
Mm.
they were very quickly there. I almost have never beaten to my seat by Kirby, but he beat me that day. I've never been beaten. So that was very odd. And they did want to kind of get out of there. I don't know, but this is going to be a real challenge. I think it's good for Carson Beck. The only other thing is like this is going to be a one-off game in a couple of ways. Number one, and I mean I don't play for Georgia or work for Georgia or anything like that, so keep it in the comments section. But they don't have to win this game. All right. B, this is going to be the last real road game they play. So the notion that this is going to get them ready for another environment. Let me go through the list real quick, Ryan. If they play Florida State, Washington, Oregon, whoever in the playoff, they're not going to be the away team. They're going to be the home team. The only two programs that can hang with them are out there are Michigan and Ohio State. And in those scenarios for a national championship game or a playoff in wherever, Georgia's going to have about half the crowd. So I think that's the other thing about playing at Neyland. This is sort of a unique challenge at this moment in the season. Tennessee's trying to avoid a fourth loss of the year. My suspicion is they'll get it Saturday night, but Georgia's got to play well in order to do that, and they have been playing well. I mentioned the Auburn game. I mean, that was the 5th game of the season. I would say of the 10 games we've seen Georgia play so far, that game probably is the worst they played. Is that right?
The
Or was
Auburn
South
game?
or was South Carolina worse?
They were both not great. I
They're
mean, they
both
were
not
both
great, and they won both
those
games.
those were 2 days where you had a hard time saying that was the best team in college football.
But can you say that now?
Yeah, no, we've all been saying that for more than just now.
Right. I
But
mean, let me ask you
yeah,
this.
you can say that now because I think at this point now the resume has cleared what
Yeah.
has cleared the reservations.
What how much would Georgia be favored by at Auburn tomorrow?
What were they favored before?
I think 14. I have to go back and look.
They'd be favored by closer to 20.
I think they'd be
It'd be
favored
like
by closer to
17 or
20 as
18.
well. Yeah. I mean, it would just be a different moment in time. I mean, do you get
Which
the
and the
Carson Beck
line for Tennessee is a little smaller than I thought it would be, to be honest.
and
Um,
some and sometimes, Las Vegas tells us, "Hey, you're getting too hot." You ratchet this down a little bit. I mean, they're a 5-point favorite over Alabama. I think that's about right. I don't think that's too low. I think it's on a neutral field. With the Tennessee thing, dude, 10 on the road is a
yeah,
lot.
it is a lot. But Tennessee, it feels so up and down. Just like every few weeks, they've had just a tough loss. Florida, and then a few weeks go by, Alabama, and then a few weeks go by, just tough loss to Missouri. Not as great of a Tennessee team as projected at the beginning of the year, and that's the case with a handful of teams. LSU is the biggest example of that.
Yeah.
But it is a team that has dangerous playmakers and will have the crowd behind it. And sometimes when a team has nothing to lose, wackier stuff can happen. And Tennessee really doesn't have much to lose at this point now.
Well, I appreciate you trying to like kind of
You got to present all sides, Dean.
yeah, I mean throw up the notion. I think teams are dangerous when they're the number one team in the country and they're whipping people's asses too. So that's the
Well, that's
other.
been the case for 3 years, and that's
Well, you
been the
seem
case for three
unimpressed.
years, where each week the team has given its team the best shot. I mean,
But
we know that's what's going to
I think
happen, but
Tennessee has played their best game, which was against Alabama on the road, and they played well in that game. I do not think
playing
that
its best game is not playing two halves of football. Is that what you're saying?
you.
Because that's what
I
happened.
mean, you're putting those words in my mouth, but it was certainly the best half they played.
They had a good half against Alabama, but
Well,
uh,
let's not make them more than
completely
they
shut
are.
down offense.
Let's not make
I
them.
mean, we're
Let's.
just discussing Tennessee for what they are.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is let's not like there. This is not Tennessee from a year ago, or perhaps it is. I mean, they had some pretty nasty losses too, Ryan. I mean, you and I
Oh
were
man, we almost made it all the way without it dropping.
almost. We the when we were driving back from Lexington last year, we could not believe how bad they were getting beat by South Carolina, and that was
Yes,
rough.
yes,
That was rough.
that was that was a bad way to end the season. And what did Tennessee have on the line at that point?
Well, they
The
could have still
playoff
gotten
was
into the
kind of
playoff.
unrealistic. The playoff was there was a chance.
Well, I mean, if they lose one game to Georgia on the road by 13, they probably do get into the playoff. But that ended that night at Williams-Brice. I mean, that was it for that. I don't know. It was not. It was a very rough situation for Tennessee. But look, man, I mean, globally speaking, when you look at the Vols, Georgia is noticeably the better team here. I think the biggest thing is, this game is at Neyland, and that is a real challenge. It's not a challenge if you run the ball the way they did this past week against Ole Miss. Tennessee's got better defense than Ole Miss. Their front is legit, but the way Georgia's offensive line is playing is quite good. Now, Missouri challenged Georgia. Okay, so we're just going to see how this goes from here on out. I'm getting phone calls. You got a final thought about wrapping this up?
Yeah, I think. Look, this is a few weeks ago when Georgia kind of had this November gauntlet, the end of October and November gauntlet that we saw. This is the game that I kind of marked mentally as it was going to be the toughest one for Georgia. Is it going to be tougher than the Missouri game? I,
I
I
don't
think in
know.
a way it will be, just because you got
Yeah,
to go up there and do that. But
yeah.
Missouri's a better team than Tennessee, and that was proven last week when they beat them by 3 touchdowns or so. And so Georgia's in a good spot right now, playing the way it's playing. It's getting hot at the right time.
Yeah,
It's getting
and
hot at the right time.
that's increasingly more important in college football. Thanks for watching.